So the other day I had this kind of episode of I don't know, I was in a mood, I was in an angry mood, etc. etc. And I just posted something on Facebook. It wasn't too damaging, at least I don't think so. Um, and Yeah, it just got me jump started when it comes to um, religion and secularism and what religion is today. Mind you, there's like about 80% of Canada that's still religious. Um, but in the face of kind of dwindling congregations and secularism and interfaith communication, sometimes religion gets to the point of being kind of barely recognizable. You're not sure what religion is and who's religious. And I'm not really in touch with the religious population, so I don't have like a very visceral understanding of what it is. But from just reading the news and listening to or watching different polls and things like that, you could tell that there's in some cases religion is a barely recognizable thing. Yet, even if it's barely recognizable, the same person can walk around claiming that they're religious. So forgetting that there could be this crazy sort of ambiguity with what religion is and what it isn't, etc., etc. I think it's important to remember that through a secular lens, there's still really rigid like posts attached to religious issues. I mean, the last one I remember thinking about was TWU, the Trinity Western University in BC. Um, that technically, I think TWU should be able to do whatever they want because they're a private school and they I think they got some like minor government funding but way back when or something like that. But being a private school, they should be able to do whatever they want. But the law societies that rejected them, and I'm glad that the Supreme Court upheld the notion that gay rights trump religious freedoms. Because do I even have to go into it for why that is so, or why that is? But in any case, the Supreme Court decided that gay rights trump religious freedoms, and I think this case is going to set precedent, and I think it's an important precedent. Interestingly enough, TWU retracted their covenant banning gay sex like across the board, like the whole school. So obviously they were tainted, and they wanted to get rid of that whole air of homophobia. I don't like using that word, but whatever. But anyway, despite the whole kind of crazy whatever religion is and all that stuff too, there's also things like the Catholic School Board in Ontario and other provinces. I know Alberta is struggling with issues surrounding funding and gay straight alliances, etc., etc. And so we have the same thing in Ontario too. But I think it's important to realize that that is completely unfair. That is completely unfair that one religion is held above other religions in terms of receiving government funding. It's just not fair. And who needs? I think that religion should be something thought of more as a life choice that requires a lot of thinking before actually jumping into it, as opposed to childhood indoctrination. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, parents are going to do whatever they want to do with their kids. I mean, obviously, but I don't think it should be in public education or any kind of education to begin with until they reach adulthood or maturity and they can decide for themselves. So that's just those are just some examples of where I see this kind of religious thing still having this very visceral and very concrete kind of thing, concrete kind of presence in society. And I don't, despite the more philosophical rantings about what is religion and who's religious and what's religious and blah blah blah. I think there's a lot of little fights that still need to get sorted out. I mean, even tax exempt status for churches. I think that's something coming up in the. I think there's a parliamentary committee or a senatorial committee. I can't remember, but there's a committee that's convening on basically tax issues and what charitable status should be and what in terms of definition, etc., etc., as it relates to churches. But that's just a small part of a larger kind of investigative kind of thing. So that's all I'm going to say. There's still these little posts, and then and then the thing is, forgetting Canada, I mean, there's so much going on in the world. I mean, there is just so much going on in the world. I mean, you think about gay rights in other countries. even in Trinidad, like my home country, and it's kind of slow moving, right? Like it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, they just decriminalized gay sex in 2007, 2018. So I mean, what does that say about the culture? And obviously there were protests that erupted, et cetera, et cetera. Once it comes to the light, the kooks are going to come out, right? So, um, so yeah, I mean, you look at the world. I mean, we were just giving refugee status to that woman from Saudi Arabia, right? That was that apostatized. So, so yeah, I mean, all these issues are going on. I mean, some people get really crazy about religion and what it is and what it's not, like I said, but we have solid issues to grab onto as atheists, I guess. But yeah, that's it. Bye.